Let's do a little best case, worst case scenario for a few of the teams that will be the subject of plenty of scrutiny. Let's start with the G.
The G-Man.
At number 3 overall.
Yeah.
And given that you are a card-carrying Jets fan whose father won a Super Bowl,
a Giants
franchise's first. What did I say?
Jets, right.
What did I said? Jets. Well,
Yes.
Giants. You're secretly a Jets fan too.
No.
Card-carrying Giants fan whose
Right.
father secretly won the first Super Bowl in franchise history. Not secret. We all know. What do you see as the best case scenario for the upcoming player selection process?
The best case scenario is, to me, that at number 3, we get the new Micah Parsons, Lawrence Taylor, and Abdul Carter, right? I mean, I call him the Carter Comet because a guy like him only comes around so often. It's only once every 5 or 6 years. He's a special specimen. So to me, that's the best case scenario. Is not only that, okay, and then having a if they want to do quarterback, right? Not trading up and having that available at the top of round 2, and not having to trade assets or make a move to do that for a quarterback that we're going, is basically a second round pick. That to me is the perfect scenario for the Giants.
Yeah, look, the best case scenario is to get in every round guys who can play right away, elevate the team, save jobs, and lay the foundation for a future that is sustainable with the current GM and head coach. The worst case scenario is if ownership gets involved, they shoot their shot for a franchise quarterback, they don't perform well enough this year to save the jobs of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, and then you've got potential franchise quarterback entering second year with a new regime, and you've got no way of knowing with certainty that the new regime even wants the guy in the building because they're not going to tell you the truth. They're never going to tell you the truth. They're going to say what they think they need to say and that what you want to hear, because you're not going to get the job if you go in and say, well, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that quarterback you drafted last year and find our own guy. They're never going to do that. They're always going to act like they want to make chicken salad, and then it's a slow, methodical, gradual process to undermine that guy and get the guy they want. You don't want that. That's how dysfunction continues.
Exactly.
If you're going to go quarterback, in round 1, you better be committed to these guys. But that's the worst case scenario.
Right.
They go the owner nudges them quarterback. It ends up being a disaster this year. GM and coach are gone, and now they got potential franchise quarterback, and they got to hope they get lucky that the person telling them, yes, that's my guy, is telling you the truth.
Right, exactly. I mean, listen, I'm with you there. My worst case scenario for them is very similar to that as well. I mean, because I'm with you. And if I was a GM of a football team, really, I was like, man, we need our quarterback for the future. Listen, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. But the simple fact of the reality, if I was going to be honest and I was a GM, I'd really only want Cam Ward. That would be about it. I really wouldn't want to be tied to any of these guys for the future. I wouldn't. I just don't love any of them. I'm sorry. It's not personal. It's just what I see on the football field. But, yeah, and me, for the Giants, a worst-case scenario a little bit to me would be, let's say Abdul Carter goes to Cleveland at 2, all right? Now, Travis Hunter is probably the pick for the Giants at 3, which, again, is not the worst. Don't get me wrong, okay? I'm okay with that, but it's not my favorite. 1, we got a pretty good secondary, and 2, our receivers are pretty good, so we're not desperate for a Travis Hunter there. And then the other part of that scenario is kind of like what you said. The Giants trade back into the first round and trade next year's first-round pick to get up to a first round for a guy that's really a second-round pick. So now we're going to waste 2 picks, basically, on a guy that we really don't match the value of where he's being taken, and then who knows what happens with the coaches and all that. So I'm with you there, Mike. I'm a little similar in the worst-case scenario.
All right, let's jump to a team that's closely connected to the Giants in a variety of ways, the Pittsburgh Steelers. What is the best-case scenario for the Steelers sitting at 21?
Well, I think,
or throughout the entire draft?
Yeah, I mean, to me is that they know they're getting Aaron Rodgers, and that they could do something at 21 that's going to significantly help their team right now. All right, I'm going to do my mock draft on my podcast here in a little bit. like the D tackle from Oregon, right? He could be a guy that could be there. They need to start thinking about some young other difference makers on that front seven. Cam Hayward, we're coming to the end here. It's year 15. So that would be ideal for them, and the fact that they know they have Aaron Rodgers and they can spend these first few picks in the first round, or the pick in the first round and some of the other early picks just to help the football team out in general.
Well, and I'll take it one step farther than that. If they know Rodgers is coming, trade out of 21 and get more of those 100 guys that are in the 30 spots from 35 to 65.
Yeah.
And get more guys that you think can help you right away, because they do kind of low-key have some needs either right now or coming up.
Definitely.
They need a running back. You don't have to draft a running back at 21. You can draft a running back later. So if you could take that, if Shedeur Sanders is still there and the Browns want to come back and get him, or the Giants want to come back and get him, or somebody wants to come get him at 21, that's your opportunity to do it, or whoever. If the Eagles want to come get somebody at 21, if you can get more picks in that sweet spot where there's a lot of guys that could maybe be difference makers for the Steelers, I think that would be even better for them than just taking the best guy who on the board at 21, pairing him up with Aaron Rodgers and addressing one need. I think the Steelers have more than one need that they need to try to address this year.
Yeah.
All right, what's the worst case for Pittsburgh?
Well, worst case is that I guess if they need a quarterback or they want the quarterback and they don't feel like Rodgers is going to happen, or that's not going to happen, and that all of a sudden there happens to be some run on the guys right before them, that to me would be maybe the worst case scenario that I think of. Like, oh, they do want to take the quarterback, but damn, the Saints took Shedeur at 9, and oh crap, somebody traded up in front of the Steelers and took Jackson Dart. And now you're like stuck in no man's land with maybe guys you didn't want, right? And I don't know what their grade is on a Tyler Shuck or a Jalen Milroe or anybody like that. But the worst case scenario would be, wait, we want a quarterback, and the top two guys we wanted ended up going before we picked, and now we're, shit out of luck here with nobody else that we really want.
Hey,
boom. Thank you.
Let me boil it down. And I think it's basically what you're saying in fewer words.
Yeah.
The worst-case scenario is Mason Rudolph is the starting quarterback week 1. That's the worst-case scenario. I don't care how we get there. But if that's how we get there, that Aaron Rodgers isn't secretly in their back pocket and that they don't come out of the draft with a guy that can be groomed and prepared to be better than the low bar, relatively speaking, that Mason Rudolph has set in his time in the NFL, and he was drafted in the second round in 2018, I believe. He's been around for a while. They know who he is. They know what he is. If he's the week 1 starter, that's the worst case scenario, because the Steelers have gotten to the playoffs with less at quarterback. I get it, but I think they should be aiming higher than maybe we can cobble together another 9-8 season and get the 7 seed in the AFC. I get the impression that they're sick of that and they want to have something a little more successful in January. All right, the Jets, best case scenario for them in the 2025 draft.
The best case scenario, I mean, they're sitting in a pretty good spot at 7. They are, as far as, again, if there was a team that was scared the Saints might take a Shedeur Sanders or somebody like that, there could be action there at 7. You don't know about that. But also with what they need and everything like that, I just look at it and go, at 7, they should have a chance to have maybe the best pure tackle in the draft, or their pick of the cream of the crop as far as offensive lineman not named Will Campbell, if you believe that the Patriots will take Will Campbell at pick number 4, which I kind of do, because I think he's kind of a Vrabel type of guy. But, yeah, that would be the best case scenario, that just the tackle they wanted, right? The Membu from Missouri, who I think is the best pass-protecting tackle in the draft. Him being there, boom, we got 2 first-round tackles from the last 2 drafts. We got Elijah Vera Tucker at 1 guard. We got Joe Tippmann, who we drafted in the 2nd round a few years back out of Wisconsin at center. And all of a sudden you look at it and go, damn, the Jets got a legit offensive line there. To me, that's one of the best-case scenarios. It might not be sexy, but it's damn good.
Well, and just big picture, the best case scenario for the Jets would be to continue to fly off radar.
I hear you there. I hear you.
Continue this vibe of We're not making any waves. We're not making any splashes. We're not making any noise or news. We're just going about our business. Go through your draft in very workmanlike fashion. Get a bunch of players that aren't going to create a ton of buzz. That's kind of why you and I agreed early on that they're not going to be looking at quarterback. They're not going to be making a Shedeur Sanders splash because their vibe right now under Aaron Glenn is to kind of quietly insulate, go about our business, not add any fuel to anything. They had nothing to say, for example, after Aaron Rodgers put them on blast. And surely they could have quibbled about some of the things that Rodgers said about his meeting with Aaron Glenn and new GM Darren Muji. They're not saying a word. They're not going to engage. They're not going to get into a street fight with Aaron Rodgers over it. They're content to just move on and maybe trust that people like us will say, see why they didn't want this guy? Just watch the 40 minutes on Thursday with Pat McAfee and you'll understand why the Jets wanted nothing to do with him. But that's, I think, the best case scenario for them, to continue this Aaron Glenn low-key, keep your head low and your mouth shut, and lay the foundation for what's coming in September. That's when it matters, not now. And let's have no one paying attention to us. That's the best case scenario for the Jets.
Yeah, I hear you there. I hear you, and they're certainly doing a good job so far of doing that and staying true to what I think Aaron Glenn wants, and been very true so far to kind of what we saw Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and how they started out in Detroit. It's kind of following a similar playbook as we look at it right now. And we'll see where it goes. But, yeah, that's why I expect them to address O-linemen like they took Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase. They were like, we're fine with that. We want Penei Sewell. We'll get a quarterback that's kind of the rest of the league doesn't love, but we're going to get him here and for a pretty good price, and we're going to kind of develop him, and we think there's something more in this player, just like Jared Goff. They're going to try to do with Justin Fields. So they're off to a good start as far as trying to replicate what Detroit did.
All right, what's the worst case scenario for the Jets?
I don't know if I see a whole lot of worst case scenarios. Here would be one that just jumps out to me, just as far as O-linemen are gone. Some of the ones maybe they wanted at pick number 7, like maybe 2 or 3 go off. Let's say the Patriots take a lineman, and let's say all of a sudden the Raiders take a lineman, and all of a sudden they go, whoa, wait, the next guy on our board here, like 7, we don't want to take this guy at 7. We got him kind of down at 20 or 18 or something of that nature. Or those 2 guys, the 2 offensive linemen and the tight end Tyler Warren, are all off the board by some crazy scenario. And now they got nothing to do or nothing to pick that really fits what they need as a team. That, to me, is about as bad as I see it going as far as the Jets. But, man, they're sitting in a pretty good spot here overall.
The worst case scenario for the Jets in this draft would be to have, what are their names? Brick and Jack, Frick and Frack, Woody's sons in the draft room with the Madden app.
You're funny.
And scrutinizing. I mean, seriously, they've done a good job of breaking from a lot of the crap that has characterized the Jets in recent years. And Jason Garrett talks about managing up. So far, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji have managed to keep Woody Johnson from screwing things up. And that's going to be one of the challenges. You have an owner who has a history of dysfunction, who's never going to admit it, and if you would even breathe the possibility of it, even as a question in his presence, he would probably summarily fire you. But you need to find a way to keep him from things up. And so keep the kids out of the draft room. If you want to go anywhere but the draft room, that's fine. We need to do our work here. That's the key. And I can't wait to see if there's shots from the draft room and who's in there and how involved does Woody Johnson seem to be. I know it's his team. He's got a right to be there. But this is a strong statement. They got to break from the stuff that has dragged them down. Keep ownership out of the football operation, truly out. The ownership and any family members out of the operation. Let the experts do their thing. All right, let's take a break. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.